The introduction of a queen bee to an alien colony is the most difficult operation that a beekeeper has to do. The queen, after travelling through the post, isn't in a normal state. Her behaviour, she's obviously worried, running around the cage. The older bees sense this, and this is what leads to failure. Now, a cage has been made which lessens the risk of this happening. The principle is 2 tunnels. One of the tunnels has a bit of queen excluder over it and only a small amount of candy, a very small amount, 1/2 to 3/4 of a centimetre. The second tunnel, which doesn't have a queen excluder over it, has a slightly bit more, but not too much. Now the bees mix with the queen in the shorter tunnel with the less candy under the cage. The queen is calmer after mixing with the bees, and then when she eventually gets released through the longer tunnel, by and large all goes well and it leads to success. Now, having got your frame of mainly sealed brood, you've got to place the queen on her own on the sealed brood. Now, go on to a colony, shake the bees off. If the queen is clipped, this can be done out in the field in the open. If she's not clipped, then you've got to carry this into the house or into a car vehicle, so in case the queen flies off. In this case, I've clipped the queen, so we open up the cage, allow the bees to trundle out onto the side of the comb. Again, this is much easier if you're indoors or in a vehicle. There's the queen. We quickly put the cage over her, making sure not to spear her. There she is, on her own. We gently press in the prongs into the comb, not spearing the queen. Have the holes for the tunnels upright at the top, and then we are now ready to place this comb into the hive. Now, after having pressed the cage into the comb, you can keep it supported. It's fairly heavy, so if you're walking across the field, keep your hands on it supported so the cage won't fall off. Move on to your hive. Now, you want to place this in the hive between frames of brood. So you've got young nurse bees on both sides. They'll come and cover this frame, and you'll have nurse bees on the other frame. This is ideal to be surrounding the queen right from the beginning. The hive staples give plenty of clustering space for the young bees to become in contact on the outside with the queen. Remember, try to have the tunnels pointing upwards for when the queen is released, so she won't suddenly fall to the floor. Go along. You've made a space between the frames, taken out a frame. Drop it down and gently move it in so the staple is supported on the other comb. This will prevent the fairly heavy cage from falling onto the floor. Press it in, close up the bees, and leave it alone for about 5 days. It's best to leave the bees alone for about 5 days. Now, you should go back towards the evening time, not the middle of the day, because the queen, a young queen, she's very light. Middle of the day, she could very, very easily fly off. So it's got to be towards dusk, roughly about 5 days later. Go to the hive, have your sugar sprayer, not smoke. The less the bees know that you've been there, the better. So as soon as you take the lid off the hive, start to spray with your sugar sprayer. Keep your eyes peeled that you don't notice a knot of bees. The queen can be bald. The bees are very protective to a brand new queen. And if you see about a thimbleful of bees clustering together on the side of the comb, you've got to spray vigorously with your sugar sprayer. Pat very firmly with the back of your hand to release the queen and re-queen her. You can save her. If you don't notice that she's being bald, she's somewhere in the hive, you've lost the queen. So it's important that you put your mind at rest that the queen's there, she's on the combs, she might be laying, you might see some eggs. Close up as quick as possible and leave them alone for a week or two. Then you can consider what to do with them, either add resources to them to build them up stronger, or take that nuclei, and if you've dequeened a stronger colony with an older queen, you can then simply go along, expose both hives to sunlight for a minute or two, spray over the tops of the frames with household air freshener to mask the smell of the 2 colonies, dequeen the older stock, and then add your frames of brood with your new laying queen. That makes all the difference in the world. Once she's been accepted by that nuke and is laying, add those frames, 2 or 3 frames, whatever it is, keep them all together and put them in your new hive, your strongish hive, close them up and all should be well. The cage is sent out without candy. Candy isn't placed in because it's better it's made up fresh on the day when you use the cage. Try not to use baker's fondant, it can go a bit hard. It's safer to make your own and get the consistency so it's fairly firm. Just simply use icing sugar and your own honey, disease-free honey, not shop-bought honey, your own disease-free honey, to a firm paste. Now, the principle behind the cage is that only a small amount of candy is placed in the tunnel which has the queen excluder. It doesn't really matter from which side you put it, but you only want a small amount, say 1/2 to 3/4 of a centimetre of candy to be placed in the tunnel, pressed in, but not a great amount. You want the queen to be mixed with the bees after they've eaten through it to take them about 2 hours, and then the bees will be mixing with the queen. The other tunnel, without the queen excluder, only a slightly bit more, 3/4 to 1 centimetre of candy and no more. The danger is, if there's too much candy in it, the queen won't be released soon enough. Now the problem with that is that the hive mind says to the bees, there's something wrong with the queen, and they start the supersedure impulse, even though the queen's still there. So you want the queen to be released and be amongst the bees fairly soon. So only up to about 1 centimetre in the other tunnel where the queen can eventually escape and mix with the bees. The best way to make up the resources to accept the queen is to mix bees in 3s if you have them, 3 different hives. Take away a frame of bees and brood from 3 different hives and a frame of food, put them into a box, nuke box or a full hive, and take them to another apiary. Leave them queenless overnight, and the next day, that's the time to shake the bees off one of the frames of brood, and as I've shown, cage the queen over that frame of brood. But mixing bees in 3s is a very, very good, effective method. As I say, leave them queenless overnight and then use this cage. Another method is to go along and simply dequeen the old queen and substitute with your new queen immediately with this cage, all in one operation. Now, for this to be a success, it's better earlier on in the season and during the season when honey is coming in. Definitely don't do it when the honey flow is over. It's best to leave it in this situation until later in the season, perhaps into October. Now, queen introduction is very successful that time of year, but of course queens aren't to be had. If that happens, all you can really do is get queens, say in August, and bank them, put them into a queen bank, and then do the introduction process later on in the season. Another method is to make up bees in your own apiary from one hive. Shake bees off brood and put it over a queen excluder. Overnight, young nurse bees will come up and look after that brood, and that is a resource you should take off in the same apiary and then introduce the queen with this cage. You might have to shake in a few more frames of bees to look after that brood, but this can all be done in the one apiary the next day, and again, cage the queen on the brood as I've shown. That is another method of using resources. So it's really 3 methods. There's the mixing bees in 3s, which is ideal, making up your nuke with resources that have come up through the queen excluder, the young nurse bees over the queen excluder, or dequeening and then same operation, putting a new one in a place. But for this to be a success, there's got to be a honey flow on or early in the season. But they're the most effective methods of the queen introduction process with this cage.